Greetings, and welcome to this brief introduction to Plato's dialogue, the Lesser Hippias. In the Greater Hippias, Hippias, the famous sophist, invites Socrates to attend a speech that he plans to give in a couple of days. Hippias says that his speech will depict Neoptolemus, the son of Achilles, learning the noble or beautiful practices that a young man should pursue in order to win fame. We don't hear Hippias' speech. The Lesser Hippias begins right after that speech ends. Now that they're with a smaller group, Socrates asks Hippias which of Homer's two heroes, Achilles or Odysseus, is better. Hippias replies that Achilles is truthful, Odysseus a liar. Obviously, then, Achilles is better. The remainder of the dialogue tests Hippias' opinion. This remainder falls into three main sections. In the first, Hippias makes the case that liars are wrongdoers, who are able to lie when they wish and who do so from a plan or purpose and with knowledge of what they're doing. You can see this point in the sciences. Someone who knows arithmetic can choose to do a true or a false sum. Also in the arts, a shoemaker can choose to make good or bad shoes. In general, then, the person who's good at something can choose to do that something well or badly. In the second section, Socrates returns to Achilles. By this argument, he claims, if Achilles knows the truth, then he also knows how to lie. To support this claim, Socrates quotes speeches in which Achilles says that he will leave Troy, but then he doesn't leave. He lies. More specifically, Socrates suggests, Achilles boasts. He makes himself sound better than he is, that he is above the fight, and that he is choosing to return to a private life. Now Hippias is scandalized. He says that Achilles lied unwillingly. But Socrates reminds Hippias that they had concluded that the good man chooses to lie. That is, he does so willingly. Only a bumbler, the bad man, lies unwillingly. Hippias replies, no, it's better to do wrong unwillingly. After all, we pardon those who do bad things unwillingly, and the laws are harsher to those who do wrong willingly. Now Socrates emphasizes that he disagrees with Hippias on just this point. At the same time, Socrates says, his opinions wander. He asks Hippias to help cure his soul of his ignorance about whether it is better or worse to do wrong willingly. With this appeal, they come to the third section of the dialogue. Hippias agrees that in pretty much every area of life, in contests or in one's body or in the use of tools, it is better to be able to choose something bad than to acquire that bad thing unwillingly. But Hippias refuses to agree that the good man, who has a good soul, would willingly choose to do bad. When it comes to justice, which Hippias equates to capacity plus knowledge, unwilling injustice is better than willing injustice. Socrates reminds him that in these very areas, capacity and knowledge, they have agreed that willingly choosing what is bad is better than having to do what is bad unwillingly. Hippias is stuck. Socrates ends the dialogue by admitting that he himself does not agree with this conclusion. Again, he says that he wanders on this point. Socrates says that it's not surprising for a private person, an idiotes in Greek, such as himself, to wander. But it's terrible if a professional, a wise man like Hippias, does so too. For then, Socrates laments, there'll be no end to wandering for any of us. The conclusion of this dialogue's argument sounds very much like Machiavelli's famous advice in The Prince, that the good prince must know how to be bad. That conclusion might be enough to cause any of us to pause. But should we take Socrates at his word that he too wanders on this point? Should we accept his plea to Hippias that his soul is ill and that he needs Hippias' help to cure it? I think not. Rather, I suspect that these are instances of Socrates' famous irony. Now, irony would fit particularly well in this dialogue about lying, for irony is making yourself out to be less than you actually are. It is the opposite of boasting. By Socrates' argument, the good man who knows the truth about himself would be able to choose, based on the circumstances, when to boast and when to be ironic. Maybe circumstances call more frequently for irony, but boasting remains an option. After all, Socrates does not criticize Achilles for boasting. He criticizes him for boasting unwillingly. But if this is true, why then does Socrates lie? I think he does so in order to draw out Hippias, this sophisticated man who remains attached to the law, and even more deeply to justice. For justice tells us to pardon the unwilling wrongdoer and to obey the law. And unlike any other science or art or business, justice says that its practitioner, the just man, must not choose to be just or unjust depending on circumstances. The just man chooses only to be just. If he ever does injustice, he does so unwillingly. What then does Socrates learn from Hippias's attachment to justice? He learns that his attachment persists even in the face of contrary evidence from almost every other part of life. He also learns that what attracts Hippias to justice is not knowledge or even the good, but rather what's beautiful. The just deed does what is good for others and noble or beautiful for yourself. In this way, the lesson of the Lesser Hippias points back to the theme of the Greater Hippias, the beautiful. What we see in that earlier dialogue is that Hippias considers most beautiful of all the prospect of a full life, a life viewed from the perspective of the afterlife, that is, from death. In this regard, Hippias resembles Achilles, whose ghost in Hades tells Odysseus that death is awful, and yet he rejoices when he hears that his son, Neoptolemus, is pursuing the same way of life that led Achilles to his own early demise. This beautiful prospect is closed to the good prince or the good man who knows how to do bad. And so, if there is any wandering in Socrates' soul, perhaps it is this, wondering whether it is indeed better to live in devotion, even if in wavering devotion, to that beautiful prospect. Thank you for joining this brief introduction to Plato's dialogue, the Lesser Hippias.